meet your author, HAJEEDAR's Journey in Architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Now it's a magical moment. It's open to the floor. Q&A. I believe we've got a lot of questions to ask and a lot of stories to tell, a lot of stories to share. Yes. Mike, ada lah? Ada. This question from the floor? Yeah, please. Anybody? Yeah. Anybody? Any questions? It's like storytelling, gitu. Yeah, storytelling. Sulok dengar. Asli want to ask over the years, over the decades. Then Mike. Silakan. Akitek translation. Ya. Kita boleh ya. Sila boleh you mic. Tak payah pakai stand lah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Waalaikumsalam. First of all, I really like to congratulate Dato' Architect HAJEEDAR for his bravery and for actually elaborating the journey. I really enjoyed your narrative and look forward to have a book and reading it. I was quite emotional listening to what you just said about what actually is happening to us in this country. The things that you showed triggered my memories of what happened in my own life itself, which not so far different from what you have experienced. I myself was considered an artist in my school, and my interest in science and art was never separated. I actually recall also meeting you when I first came back. When I first came back, I joined the late Kuala, and I was charged to handle single-handedly the development of Subang Jaya. Subang Jaya was actually under the ownership of UDA, and it was actually under UDA. I remember late Yaakob Hitam was the chairman, and another gentleman who was so aggressive, Pang Kong Hee. I think I met you once, in UDA, and presented myself as someone from Gold. Anyway, that was the first time I met you. You were young and very brave, and I was young too. Equally brave. And I think you have achieved quite a lot, and amazingly. And some of the things that have been shown is really, really amazing to me, because a lot of us don't know. A lot of us don't know. You have been very well, in fact, to keep it quiet. So I'm really glad that you're having this expose now, and really expose yourself to tell us really who you are. Because we had a different impression of who you are. And so now the impression is gone, and You've been very, very transparent. Not fully, not 100%. You said you still have a lot. you keep it very close to your chest. But I must say that it's a wonderful expose, and really my heartiest congratulations on your achievement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tan Sri.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Maybe perhaps next one from Johor Bahru, Architect Amdan. Yes, please.
My fellow Hajj.
Thank you, Agreta. Yes, your fellow Hajj. When I passed my part 3, I went to Lembaga and wanted to register myself as Hajj Architect. Then the conductor was Hassan. No, sorry, Hajj was taken away. I think give way to the man. So I was disappointed because my name is Hamdan Abdul Jamal. I could have used Hajj Architect. Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to you, Dato'.
Thank you.
Finally, you made your book. I remember about 15 years ago, I was doing a book on history of PAM. So I interviewed a few past presidents, Ken Yang, David Tay, and yourself. I went to your office in Krabi. I was busy with my practice anyway at that time. So I allotted about 2 hours to have lunch with you. You brought us to, I think, downstairs first. So you talk about PAM or your history with PAM. But the conversation continued. He brought us to BANGSAR shopping village until 7 o'clock at night. I don't know how to stop you, but I knew there was a book coming out from you, but I wasn't the person. Congratulations also to your staff who managed to compile all this and made it into a book. I know it's a big task. Even to finish that PAM book was also, in the end, Saifuddin pushed me forward on it, and then in the end was edited by another person. Going through your work, yeah, when I was a student, I look up at your sketches in Makkah and Madinah when I was reading PAM magazine, Majalah Akitek, those days when I was a student. One question for you throughout this journey, I feel sad that we are losing this planning. The planners have aged us out of the planning capacity. I saw some of your work master plan. We do master plan also, and my partner also have done some planning work, master plans all over the world. I knew actually, I was at PAM when we fought this, hired lawyers and argued about this 5-acre rule and all those things. My question to you is, how do we get back this planning faculties? Because planning is not just 2D, two-dimensional, it still involves design and three-dimensional thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm done. You're right. When I was in PAM, we did fight for it. And at the same time, there's a lot of pressure from the other side, i.e. the planners. There are a lot of planners. I can name you one particular gentleman that Isha Arif, Dato' Isha Arif was campaigning on the other side. And I know him as an extended family friend. Munshi Arif, family from Penang and all this. And then also, when he was a young planner in Penang, my father was the OCPD in Georgetown, so he was quite close to my dad. So he uses that connection to access me about forming the Lembaga Perancang, which I did help because I was on the board of Lembaga Akitek. And in fact, if you look at the records, I'm one of the the original Lembaga member or Lembaga Perancang because of the continuity that he wanted. Because a lot of them is a replicate of Lembaga Akitek. Yeah. So point is at that stage, most master planning was done by the architects. The architect did the master planning, and we had planners to assist us. That's why we had people like M.K. Sen. You know, M.K. Sen was one planner who helped architects, who worked with architects, and they come under the umbrella of the architect, because that's why the profession, we were the lead consultant always. And under us were the QS and all that. Before, the architects, BEP, for example, had a contract division with the QS. There, you know, there is no quantity, no Yong Ming Sang yet. No Yong Ming Sang, no Yong Ming Sang and siapa? Faiz. Yong and Muhammad Faiz. No, none. Because they were all in-house. So likewise, just as an example, when I was doing the master planning for Mersing, one of the conditions that you must have a registered planner to submit your work and be involved with you. That's it. So I take that as an obstacle that I have to overcome. So to your question, that's my answer. You know, I'm not going to allow my ideas to be dominated by a planner either. You know, I'm creating this thing, but the bylaw requires that local authorities will only submit plans submitted by a planner, a registered planner. So what do? I find a registered planner to do my submission. I do all the design, I do all the reports. So I get that satisfaction of designing and master planning. The submission can be done by him. I'm paying him to do the submission. He needs some. And as Dato' Isha Arif also told me, dia orang pun nak cari makan. They want to work. So I said, yes, but is that kind of work just give you much satisfaction? Other people's work. Today, any submission to any local authority must be endorsed and submitted by. So you just convince your client, now you have another expenditure, which is the planner's fee, over and above my fee. And some of my clients accept it. It's an additional cost to them. And so this is, we have to discuss this openly so that we can find the right way of working together and get reasonably remunerated or paid, you know, for the work. So this is why dulu the adage that the architect is the first in and last out, you know, still is first in. First ideas from a client, a potential client, comes from an architect. And then you are the last out. 2 years after the building is completed, the defectability period, habis. Then the accounts. Then after you sign on. So that's first in, last out. That's the architect's profession. And this is why I am trying to tell people, let's not worry about planners, QS and all. Okay, you want to do the job, you do the job. I will recommend you, provided you can do the job. You know, I've been quoted, Adjunct quoted me last week, but somebody saying that, oh, at one meeting, you were so annoyed, you told the architect, told the engineer something, and there was a mix of stories there. The thing is, you come to a meeting representing an engineering office, and then we say, can we do this? Can you make sure that you change this thing to comply with our requirements, which is architecture? So the engineers should follow the architect's drawing. You know, you cannot independently draw away from the architect's references. So I said, can you change this? No, I go back and tell my boss. Then I said, no, you must give me the answer, yes. Can you change or you cannot change? He says, oh, I cannot change. Then I said, then we change the engineer. You cannot change the design, we change the engineer. Then you shouldn't come for anything, waste of time. So remarks like that is linked with yet another story, which was wrong. But the story is true. But that story I cannot do today because the audience, privately I can show you. So that is the answer to working with others. But sekarang, oh, you're doing this thing, we must have a landscape architect. We must have, dulu, architect does practically everything. From landscaping, because I think we are too liberal when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Perhaps I would like to open the floor to graduates here. Abang Inkan, is it possible, Inkan? Because you are the present graduate, to ask a question to Dato', please, from all the way from Kuching. This one.
Yeah.
Abang Inkan.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity for me in this profession. I don't, and in fact, I myself on a Haji Peace Drive. For me, as for myself, I'm very happy to be here. I think that's all. Thanks.
All right. Okay, from graduates, yeah, Mariana Isa. Yes. Thank you, Inkan.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, I'm a graduate and I'm also a representative of ICOMOS. I just want to share a bit. Where was I? Sorry. Okay. So actually, my hobby is to read old papers. So every now and then, if I find an interesting article related to Dato' HAJEEDAR, I'll send him a copy or a link. And all the things that you said, a lot of the records on heritage conservation statements and all are by Dato' HAJEEDAR, especially in the 1970s and 1980s. And if we revisit them, they're still very relevant, showing that we did not, grow much since the 1970s, but that's another story. But what's admirable is that you, Dato' HAJEEDAR, has been able to remain relevant and influential up to today in the advocacy or for the preservation of architectural heritage. And this I want to share with the audience. And I don't know whether you're aware how influential you are. When I manage the press releases, your statements with Paid News Straits Times, The Star, the journalists will tell me, yes, okay, this is good. Anything by Dato' HAJEEDAR actually carries a lot of weight and then it has a lot of mileage. There are
People.
yeah, journal paper, they want your name in because you are able to bring issues to a wider audience. Every article that has your statements gets thousands and thousands of clicks. And we've tested a few with let's just do this through the Kuala Lumpur Heritage Review Group, right? It doesn't get really much, maybe 100. And then next month you're featured, the same topic, the same issue, a few 100,000. So if you had a Twitter account, you would probably have like 1 million followers.
Wow.
Yes, I would like to share to review that you are one of the most influential personality in the local heritage conservation, at least at the media, up to the mass media level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mariana. I just want to echo that. This is what Architect Mustafa has mentioned is, you are the interactive walking encyclopedia. Encyclopedia. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you so much. Is there anybody? Kukin, you have any question from students? Please, can you ask Dato? You have any question from yourself as a student? She's the only student here.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Architect HAJEEDAR, for telling us your story. As a young person, I'm really honored to hear someone who's been through the whole thing. And now I realize that I actually have a very long way to go. I'm only 22. So I would like to ask, on behalf of my generation, what is something that is currently missing in Malaysian or global architecture, or something that's been lost throughout the years, that's kind of lost its like authenticity or integrity? Like, what is that thing that's been lost throughout all of these years in architectural development?
Okay, yeah, I know. So I was just trying to, how old are you again?
I'm turning 22 this year.
22.
25 gap. 25 years gap.
Okay, that means you are at the level of my grandchildren, but the truth of it is that I have seen the development and the change from when I started the academic pursuit. When I was at college, we were drawing with hands, hand drawing and all that, and we have to relate by way of sketches. And if you can sketch as well, then it's easier for you to convince someone else. So, and over the time, then there are other aids that came in to document and create images, right up to present day computerization and various software programs, and the disappearance of certain group of people. For example, in the past, you don't have just an office, an architect's office, but you have draftsmen, you have printers. There are people who does printing. There are binders. They bind documents. Coming back to Andan's point just now. The office does everything. The architect's office does everything. And then you have site inspection. You have a clerk who works in your office to do all that. So everything had different slots of people. And the biggest support an architect's office require would be draftsperson. They come in forms of draftsman and draftswoman, And then on reflection again, I don't distinguish between a draftsman or a draftswoman. If you can draft and document it, I'm grateful already. I have achieved mine. And this is why very often, when we change the system over the years, it has changed so much that there was a time when PAM ran drafting classes. There are graduates graduating as draftsmen, and we give them sigil. And with that sigil, they go back to the office, naik gaji, because you are a PAM approved draftsperson. So, but over time, we dropped them. No, they're no more in the market because architecture graduates that came back were able to draw and present themselves better. And this is why during interviews, when I have portfolio interviews of candidates, I like to go through their portfolio to see, is this your drawing? Yes, okay, nice. Or, very nice. Or if they're honest, they'll tell you, that's not my drawing. It's a group work. I only did this. Okay, which one did you do? I did the writing. The drawings were done by another architect. I say, okay, that sets my mind already. They don't expect him or her to be able to draw because it's someone else's. So, and those are their pitfalls. When they start to work, they cannot draw when they have shown something that is done in a group. Then, so what's the key? The key is being honest. Honest to yourself first, not honest to your employer or your potential employer, because you just want to impress so that he will agree to your gaji, you know? So that's not it. So today, a lot of practices have no more draftsman, draftsperson. The architect does the designing and the translation into documents, and it's all on the computers. You can send it out without having to print. No problem. No printer. But I still have my ammonia printing machine in my office. It has not been operational for the last 20 years. But I kept them as a possible future reference, you know, because I have my original computer, my original computer when I started computerization as a reference only, so that in future, when we show you that, you know, the rotary pen, technical pen of different sizes, 0.1, 0.2, 0.6, and stencils. Exactly. So that change there, you can only appreciate through research and going back to history. And this is what I am trying to say. Even in the compilation of my papers, in the first part are all the handwritten papers. Then the PowerPoint. You see how we've jumped, you know? And to me, my advice is be the architect you want to be, meaning you are still expected to be creative and introduce new values. It's just the same thing, but you reproduce it into a better presentation, better way of convincing, and more efficient utilization, and better environmental impact achievement, things like that. Those are the kind of target. In fact, I was trying to respond just now to what a graduate architect point about the future. Today, you ask me the future prospects of architecture, you know, which I've shared with you. But I will share it. Maybe I use today as the platform to launch it, because once upon a time, for about 11 years or 12 years, I was the chairman of the PAM Part 3 exam, professional practice, you know, and I set the questions, you know, and set and structure the guideline for answers. And I have to do it in English and in Bahasa. And I have in my office candidates who are preparing to sit on the exam, and none of them knew what the questions were, you know. And you remember, you were there. LC was typing up in stencils all the questions and answers. So she doesn't disclose to any of the staff. You know, you talk about, she's only a secretary, but she knows it belongs to PAM, PAM. So she would do it on her own, or as you know, only with me. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that once upon a time, we were very keen to register more architects, because by the UIA guideline, 0.001% of the population should be architects to serve. You know, for a population of 30 million, we must have 3,000 architects to really serve the population. And don't forget, Malaysia's development and volume of work is a lot more than any other countries. There was a time Kenya gave the figures that the total value of works in Malaysia is higher than Europe altogether. We have more work than the European architects have. So that was one time. Now, today, the exam then, we structured it with lectures, followed by an exam, written exam. And then at the end of it, after the papers have been marked, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the oral. And at the oral, our intention is to clear any doubts that the candidate has with regard to the practice and the questions that we've set, so that they have a second chance to reply to that question. So if they said something that is contrary to what we expected, then we ask them, is this correct? If it is correct, then obviously you didn't learn. But if you said it's not correct, why? Because after the exam, I went back to check and I found that that's not the right answer. This is the right answer. I said, so you sure this is the right answer? They say, yes. Okay, then you have benefited two. One, the mistake, and the other is the right. So learn what to do and not to do. So this is, again, another of my additional statement. So this is why, of late, I'm quite concerned. We have been losing, I've spoken to Adjunct Professor, because I get feedback. There are candidates who have attempted 10 times, 12 times the part 3. I say, this is ridiculous. Either you're hopeless, you're not meant for practice altogether, or you are real dumb. That means having gone through a 5-year course with 2-year practical, 7 years, how can you fail? There's something wrong. So this is why I was keen to throw this idea, which I did on the clubhouse discussion, that when you train as an architect, it's not necessary that you should be a Part 3 registered architect in land. Maybe 30% or 40% of the graduates should be the registered architect. The balance will continue. And this is where you will eventually develop a system whereby there are submitting architects only. And they are the one that has to take professional indemnity insurance. The other graduate architects, brilliant at design, they come up with new ideas and all that. They can spend their time on creative endeavor rather than the run-of-the-mill authorities. Because it's not easy to deal with authorities, because the people in the local authorities do not have similar background of training, professional training that you have. And they have to evaluate multiple applicants and applications and projects. So they cannot focus. So this is why I foresee, for example, as we go along, that there'll be less professional architect, meaning those who can sign, and more practicing architects, design architects. And we have seen this. Just now you mentioned GDP. GDP, for example, the attraction is GDP as a group of architects practicing, and the design is always headed by Kami American. And Kami American is not registered with the board. Syed Sobri is. And most of the submissions were done by Syed. I hope he doesn't mind me making known that. And in fact, once upon a time, I identified Syed as a potential partner. That's why I included him among the 7 KL architects, but fortunately or unfortunately, he went with come here to start. So it's okay. I have no regret. And your reference to me calling you and all that is my obligation and responsibility as an employer to do the exit interview. I want to know where you're going, you know. It's always been a pasture, it's a matter of time when I find out, but it doesn't matter. But for as long as you are on my payroll, you're my staff, and I'm entitled to ask you questions, you know. Because, you see, that's architect, you seem puzzled, tak tahu this, all that. Yes, I cannot tell you everything. If you have children, you don't tell your children everything that you know. There'll be a time when you tell them about this, that, and the other, and all that. So you have to control that. So coming back to graduate, I'm trying to suggest, don't panic about this exam. You know, don't panic about the exam. It's just another exam. You know, if you are less stressful, I think you'll be able to answer it better. And my other comment is that I think this was changed when Tan Sri took over as chairman of the exam. The reverse, you know, the oral before the written. There is virtue in that also. You don't want people to waste their time. Well, you're not ready yet, so why should? Oh, you're ready? Okay, you can sit. But it doesn't give them the second chance to answer the question, because there is no correct answer. In professional practice, there's no correct answer. You just practice. If it complies, you should know. Yeah? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I think most you will like that.
Most mistake.
Dato', first of all, congratulations. Yes, cheers to you. For the completion of your book, MCO. Okay. Two questions. I saw in some of your pages about foreign architects, you know, how you handle during your time. Number two, what is the lesson, or rather anecdotes, that you can give to us that gave you, or how shall I say, shine over you during this whole almost 3 years in your pandemic return? I think we also need to know from your side, who's going to be in 77 years old. So how is it to you? And will you carry on practice or something else?
Yeah.
Most will be the last question, the last panel. I mean, the last person to ask the question. Yeah,
50 minutes until 1 o'clock to answer that.
Yeah.
And then after that, we move on to the book signing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Apparently, I've signed some already.
Advance.
Yeah. The first question before he interrupts.
Foreign architects.
Foreign architects. Okay. Foreign architects, the issue started way back in 84, 85, because we were getting a lot of attention as potential country where there are lots of projects now. And some clients want to bring foreign architects. They said, what's wrong? It's like a Gucci thing. And Kenyang referred to it as the Gucci syndrome then. You know, people want to buy a handbag. Hello, local made, it is not as valuable as one from Gucci. Yeah? So that was the Gucci syndrome period. So, and on the other hand, the government was saying, why are we having foreign architects when we have local architects? They are not fully employed and all that. So we said, this is it. Under the Architects Act, there is a provision for citizenship, you know, because the act is to protect the architects and the Malaysian society. So Malaysian architects and the Malaysian society. So based on the act, you must be a Malaysian before you can be registered. So we said that PAM views is that then we must control foreign architect intervention coming into the country. So how do we go about it? So it's difficult to prove and to get the cooperation of the developers that wants to appoint foreign architects, because I like them, and I can go to their country for holiday, and that's why I appoint a foreign architect. So then there was a time when government gave us the support, and we worked with the immigration to prevent foreign architects, because what they were doing is they operate from Singapore, for example, you know, and they come in on a daily basis, but the practice is in Singapore, but the projects are here. So then when we got the cooperation of immigration and all that, so at the airport, some architects were turned back, foreign architects. So that's one, yeah. Because we felt then that we did not have enough architects. When we were 20 million population, you know, which is not so long ago, 20 million, we didn't have 2,000 architects. We had about 1,000 architects or less. So that's how we wanted to prevent. But as the government grew, this is where, with due respect, I disagree with Tun Mia's shift. One time he was pro developing our Malaysian human resource. In other words, there must be Malaysian architects, engineers, Malaysian this, Malaysian that, doctors. Everything was, let's have our own people first before. And if we need foreign assistance, we secure them. That's why when we did the atomic center dekat Bangi itu, we allowed the registration of foreign engineer, no architect, or foreign engineer. Started there. So as we go along, but today the trend is, you know, if you have a foreign name, and of course this was supported by the iconic Twin Tower, where Petronas, being one of the bigger organization that has lots of funds, because oil money, so we can afford to do that, and we want to be in the world setting, global setting, and of course we did get the global recognition, global setting. But look at the accounts. I think Lilian had a couple of years ago disclosed and given to the government. Government wanted to know how much foreign professional fees have left the country. It's not in the million, billion. You take that amount, divide by our 2,000 over architects in this country, most of us will go through the MCO into the second question. You know, katalah that money didn't leave the country, it is still here. And you could use that fund to do all the projects and engage different architects. Take one of the senior architects to lead a team of younger architects, you know, of all stages. So we can, if you want, but no, the decisions are made by the various clients. And very often, the one that appoint foreign architects are the GLCs. They are quite independent. They are sometimes more independent than government, in terms of government policy, because with due respect, you look at their setup one, the salaries are much more lucrative in the GLCs than in the government. So it's worth venturing. So this is why it's a dilemma we are facing. So I don't mind sharing this now. So if we don't fight among ourselves and reinforce ourselves, we have to reinforce ourselves as a professional body that we are still relevant. Relevant is the word. We should be more relevant now under these circumstances of MCO. Pasal tak boleh keluar. We got to generate the income from within us. Tak payah invest overseas yet. You know, you do it here. You clean up. There are a lot of projects or development that doesn't comply, doesn't meet the demand. For example, there's overhang of accommodation. A lot of, especially the high-end accommodation that $1 million and above cost. The 30,000, 300,000 pun susah. You know, I still get inquiry from UDA. You should invest in Kampung Baru. You are not Kampung Baru. How much? Oh, the 300,000 semua dah tak ada. The 500,000, 800,000 per unit is available. But in Kampung Baru, you look at the infrastructure. To get to legacy, for example, you have to go through my favorite nasi lemak lah, Wanjo and all that. But if you live there, you'll be depressed, not depressed, unhappy because you have to go through that jam and all people illegally parking, double parking, triple parking to get to your unit. And if you want to rent it out, especially to foreigners, susah. So that's the second question lah. So okay.
What's your take from the
MCO. Pandemic. Yeah lah. Okay, pandemic. One is that we have a new discipline, both self and community discipline. Self meaning you have to look after yourself and you make sure that the people that you deal with look after themselves. Any other young culprits, you know, yesterday I went to the masjid. They say, you know, Damansara tutup, Masjid Raha tutup, all the Jemaah comes to BANGSAR, and some of them say, I know that they are positive. Macam mana dia boleh masuk? So that self-discipline is not there. And there are people who say, we are going to the mosque. What's wrong? God will protect. Tak boleh. Manusia must protect. Man is first. You know, you don't just say, God will protect us. You have to protect yourself. But then God will protect you. Macam back to the Tambat Kaldai or Tambat Unta punya story. So, and I think I gave an interview with Edge and BMW, how to, with the guy, Liu, I think. He's not an architect, he's not an interior designer, he's just a guy who wants to do business of fitting out apartments. And he does it cheaper than what IKEA could have done. You know, same component, but of lesser. He can fit out any apartment. So people are not interested to just buy the apartment and then next time, no, they want to move in the apartment where the furniture is there. So he has given that. So I said, just carry on. The same thing with us as architects. If you have finished a project, it could have been an office block. It's empty, you know. So rather than run that empty thing, the owners must start thinking in terms of what's the alternative use. This is where your Soho comes in. You know? And you bring back the people. Because about three years ago, my wife and I and some friends, we were in Vancouver now. Vancouver was a dead town about 4 or 5 years ago. What they did is they converted some of the unoccupied apartments into unoccupied offices into apartments, brought back the population. And because the population is there and they are so used to not cooking at home, restaurants sprout up, all sorts of restaurants. Otherwise, the city will be dead by 6 to 7. But now, up to midnight, people are, you know, they go home, get dressed, come down again to have dinner. So it changed lifestyle. Likewise, KL could do the same. There are a lot of buildings unoccupied. You have to just be brave and do it. And don't watch seminar, not discuss workshops. You think you have to do it? You run the figures and make sure that it works. So in other words, this MCO has its positive effect. Makes you think beyond the norm. Yeah. Thinking beyond the norm is how we progress. That's my take.
In a good way.
Be positive, not positive COVID,
Positive COVID.
but
Yeah.
progressing the good way.
Ah,
Right. I think it's a single conversation with a wise man like Dr. HAJEEDAR is better than a year study. Better than a year study.
Only if there is a, Dato, only
Ah.
if there is 24 hours in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we only have like 4 hours in the morning.
Yeah.
So maybe next time we will have.
Yeah, inshallah.
We have a further discussion like what Architect Hamdan said. You spend how many hours, Angga? I spent 8 hours last week listening all the stories.
Yeah, stories banyak.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see, some of the stories, itu ya susah nak cerita. But because it is not in the market, we never learn. We could have avoided a lot of landslides.
Yes.
Orang tak nak learn, you must learn. Kan?
You're right, Dato'.
Yeah.
Let's inspire by the past and build for the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dr. HAJEEDAR, big author. Thank you for the PAM Resource Center committees and also supported by ICOMOS. Thank you so much, ICOMOS.